So I've been threatening to do this for a little while. Hi, this is General M, and these are...
Arc 1.
And Silent.
And we have things to say today. And like I said, and I've been threatening to say, if I wasn't a little nervous, I wouldn't be human. So I guess I must be, even though as much as I say I'm a biomechanical android, I must be a little bit human because I'm feeling this.
You're definitely human.
Thank you.
Either that or rather convincing.
Ah, is that what it is?
It might be. Yes. This motion is so much better when you actually have like a beard to stroke.
I can't help that, man.
No, I'm just saying, like, I used to do this all the time, just jokingly, and now, now that I have a beard, I fucking get it.
I just got the 5 o'clock shadow thing going, but...
Wait, crap, should I be cursing on this? Probably not.
Demonetized! Anyways.
Beep! Yeah, in the land of free speech.
Right.
Yeah. Alright, so, I'm really not here to offend anyone. I'm actually trying to bring people together, and that's part of my point. So, all of this craziness, I know all of my there's like so much silence on my Facebook page and even on Quora, because I've been on Quora for quite a while, talking about relationships, and I've even been talking about pet psychology, because you guys know how close I am with my pet. And,
yeah, we love Bella.
Yeah, she's awesome.
Bella's a good kitty.
Yeah.
And so I've been talking about like interpersonal relationships, and I've been studying communication for a while. I'm trying to bridge gaps between people because we have so much more in common than not, and it seems like people focus on the things that we don't have in common, but as human beings we have so much more in common than not, and I think that really time has come to focus on those things. But life has been really hard for me, and this year I really had to make a break from what wasn't working, because obviously the definition of stupidity is doing the same thing over and over and expecting different results.
Very true.
Yep.
So this year my New Year's resolution was to just simply be what I am and see what happens. Be what I am without expectation, mind you, because expectation is really what lets us down.
Oh, yeah.
And then just see what happens. And it's really funny that not even, fully 2 months into the year, and this is what I'm doing.
Yeah.
Right? Yeah. And so, like, when I post this stuff with my hashtag, General M for Prez, it's like crickets, and I really think it's just, like, people waiting to see what is going to come of this right here, what I'm doing. So that was my New Year's resolution. That led into 2 things. Now, I always think before I speak. I think you guys can attest to that, because I'm very quiet.
Yeah, we can smell the gears turning before you begin to speak.
No
right. Thank you for that. I'm glad you could tell. But that led to 2 very key points. Think before I speak, but when I say something, is what I'm going to say going to help another person? So that's very big. And then, is what I'm going to say going to possibly aid in positive social change? Those are 2 things that go through my brain before I open my mouth at all, ever, to anyone. And so that's very important. I mean, like, even when I go out in public and I look for something beautiful about anybody that I see, and then I open my mouth and blurt out exactly what I'm thinking. It's a compliment to anybody that I see on the street, because I feel like lifting up one person is going to lift up the next people they see. Is going to lift up the next people they see. And so on and so on. It's going to create positive social change just by complimenting one person who may have been suicidal, who may have been having a bad day. And to me, that is really huge. So I've been trying to do that in my life. Period. And it started as a mental process that I had to work on, but now it's become second nature. And so I've been big on that with Quora. I've been big on that with Facebook. Point being, just running it through those 2 questions and that process. So then what happened next is my goal is writing a book based on those 3 things. My New Year's resolution and what happens when I run those 2 through my brain, and then the results of that. And yeah, so here we are. Look at what just being me leads to. I am so much trouble. Oh, God. So, let me see. My big thing always has been, and I'm curious what you guys think of this in your life, golden rule stuff. It's been in my brain forever. I mean, just the fact, just treating another person how you'd like to be treated, it seems like no duh. If you see a person on the street who has a busted tire, how would you like to be treated if you were that person on the street?
I mean, calling out to the universe like, hey, I would definitely, I could really use some help. Sure enough, 5 minutes later, somebody pulls up along, in front of or behind and goes, hey, you okay? You need a hand? It's like, yeah, as a matter of fact, I do.
Yeah.
Right. And there has been points where I have had one bottle of Fix-A-Flat in my car, and I've given it to that person on the street because they needed it more than I did.
Yeah.
Oh, yeah.
And I have found that those little things come back to you, that person somehow comes back to you in your life and helps you out when you need it the most. And it's weird how that happens, but the good comes back to you. And the thing is but you have to do it without that expectation, though.
It's true.
Yeah, you can't be expecting a reward for helping somebody out, because then that defeats the entire purpose.
Right. You just do it because you know how it feels.
Because it's the right thing to do.
Right.
You help somebody out because, hey, they need help.
Well, what would be amazing is that scenario I just described is, one person pulling up and asking, hey, are you okay? Do you need assistance?
Right.
Would be amazing. But imagine, hypothetically, if, a convoy just pulled over to the side of the road, or, a few people just, poking their heads out of the windows like, hey, you all right? You look like you got stranded. Do you need a hand?
Yeah.
Yeah.
And unfortunately, it seems like personal hang-ups seem to get in the way of that. Like, oh, this person's got tattoos. They might be dangerous. No, it's 2020.
I'm really dangerous.
Yeah, right.
Yeah.
It's time to put that away. Like, it's as old as last year's turkey, and it's starting to smell as bad.
Oh, God, yeah. Yeah.
Like, piercings as well, and strange hair colors. There's nothing saying that that's unprofessional, except for the people trying to keep people like that out of the workplace.
Yeah. When the mold begins to develop its own language, you know it's old.
Yeah.
Oldie moldies, moldy oldies.
Oldie moldy.
Their mold has hit the Industrial Revolution. It's creating its own smog.
Okay.
Yeah. I mean...
Yeah. One person's amazing. A bunch of people, that would definitely be a sign of significant improvement. Just society in general.
Yeah.
I feel like I'm jumping a little ahead of myself here, but I mean it all comes down to, I think, us in ourselves, and maybe that's it. That there's a Indian philosopher, Jiddu Krishnamurti, who said that it all starts with an inward revolution. That once we raise ourselves to a standard, and once we attain a higher standard for ourselves, then the world will change around us. If we hold ourselves to a higher esteem, then the people around us will raise themselves to a higher esteem, and the people around them, and the people around them, and George Carlin says we get the government we deserve.
Yeah.
Whereas if we hold ourselves to a higher standard, then by all rights, all things, raising everyone upward, we will get the government we deserve because we come to know that we deserve better.
Right.
It's the same with partners and friends and so on.
And I can see how it's a beautiful idea, but it doesn't always work in practicality, because there's always that one person that's going to go, well, I'm going to do this because it's the opposite of what everyone else is doing, and I want to be, a contrarian.
Well, that's why there's a vote, right?
Well, that's true, but it's not all about the vote. It's about, it's also about day-to-day interactions.
Yeah.
There's always going to be that one guy who's like, no, I'm not holding the door for anybody. Just, if you're right behind me, I'm going to make extra effort to make sure the door closes, because one person per door open.
Well, I mean, this is why I have, like, my own personal... I mean, nobody has to follow this but me, obviously.
Right.
But my own personal version of the golden rule, which is do unto others as you would have them do unto you. But once they do unto you, they show how they would like to be done unto them.
Right.
If they don't open the door for me, then they show me that they do not want the door open for them.
Right.
So, I mean, how they treat me comes back to them.
Yeah, and there's also those guys that are like, oh, well, I don't get the door for dudes because that's gay. Like,
yeah, this is
really gay?
This has become a human thing now. This is beyond gender.
Like, it's common courtesy.
Yeah.
You know, when I open the door for someone, I'm not concerned with what's between their legs.
Yeah.
You know, I'm concerned with, oh, they're also coming into the same place as I am, or oh, they've got two hands full of stuff.
Yeah, it doesn't take any more effort to hold a door.
Right.
Unfortunately, there is always one in every crowd.
And there always will be.
Yeah.
You know, there always has been, and that's the state of humanity.
Yeah. Well, as I said, there's only one.
Mm-hmm.
You know, as the general saying goes, there's usually only one in every crowd.
Unless the crowd is made up of groups of those one guys.
Well, no, at that point, it's a coup d'etat.
At the same time, though, and again, we're getting a little ahead of ourselves, but at the same time, people are getting more intelligent. The younger generations definitely are becoming more educated, even though the school system is failing.
Oh, yeah.
And that's something that the elder generations are not realizing or recognizing. And my life pretty much has been dedicated to education and communication. And I am beginning to really definitely put the pieces together between different cultures and different generations. And
Right.
pretty much what I exist to do is to bring different types of people together so that they can facilitate communication and bridge gaps.
Right. And that's understandable. Crap, I forgot the point that I was holding on to was.
Sorry.
No, you're not.
We actually do need to move on a little bit, and I'm trying to stay on point. So
Well, right. Oh, that's what it was. Mm-hmm. A prime example of the new generations becoming, as a whole, smarter. Mm-hmm. You know, if you took a look in the kids section of a library, say 20 years ago, I'm 26. Mm-hmm. If you took a look in the library when I was 6 years old, there was, the very hungry caterpillar. There was, Dr. Seuss. There was all this goofy stuff, but there wasn't a whole lot of educational stuff. But nowadays, you go into the children's section of the library, and it's how to code a sandcastle.
Coding, that's really impressive for kids' books.
I couldn't believe my eyes when I came across that stuff at the book job. I'm not going to say the company name because they don't deserve to be mentioned in any positive or negative
and
capacity.
We are going to go in more detail about them in a little bit. So,
but seeing that was it was mind blowing for me because I was like, I had no concept of what coding was, but then again, I wasn't born with a screen in my hand.
Right. Yeah, well, neither was I, that's another thing I want to get into.
Right.
But the idea that really kids, Gen Z's children, not Gen Z's children, are going to be raised learning how to code, people.
Yeah.
And I think if we were smart, we would really start learning how to code in order to stay ahead. If you were smart, you'd start learning how to code to stay ahead.
Absolutely.
That's both a very scary but also very exciting thought.
Right?
Oh, yeah. I mean, show of hands, how many people were asked by an older relative to program a VCR?
I think.
Yeah.
Yeah, and that wasn't even actually programming. That was just setting it up for the proper channel and the proper input and whatnot. This is like actual coding, like actually putting in the lines of code.
Yep. They're gonna be controlling the robots that we're gonna be seeing in the future.
Right. They better, otherwise
the
robots are
complex
going to be controlling
robots,
them.
like the androids, that we're gonna be seeing.
Yeah.
They're going to be setting up the algorithm to help the robot at least control itself to a certain degree.
And this is where we're at, though.
Yeah.
The kids of your guys' kids are going to be doing this shit.
Not that I have any, thankfully.
Right, yeah. But, I mean, okay, so I was born in 74. I was reading and writing in 76. And I have like made a life study ever since, and I am saying I never ever thought I was going to be going to college. I was raised in a Lovecraftian hell house in the style that only Greg Olson could write. Greg Olson, only you will write my life story. So you know, my mom was really impressed with me when I was that young reading and writing. She'd take me around and show me off. She was so proud. And then, you know, when I was like 5, yeah, you know, it's no longer impressive. This is a true story. But I gained a love of learning, and I've been feeding my brain ever since, reading and studying. And there was one point in my life where I studied Egyptology for 6 years with library books because we didn't have the internet. So I actually had to check out library books, and I would study them like I was in college. I would take the books, I would have a notebook, I would, you know, jot down like I was actually in school, and that's how I learned the language and the culture and the religion and everything. I actually learned to read the language, and I still remember some of that. It was very long ago, but I still, you know, I can talk about things like King Tut.
Yeah.
And how he was actually nobody. And it's just the fact that these things that I took so many years to study, you guys watching an epic rap battle.
Yeah. Oh, yeah, like Shaka Zulu versus Caesar.
Right? You know, and I can point these things out and go, well, you guys have the cliff notes, but you know about these things that I studied years for because I didn't have the internet, which makes you guys so many light years ahead of the typical Gen Zs and boomers, and that the regular workplaces that you guys are being shoved into don't get why you guys are so unsatisfied, because you are so far ahead of them, and you have people that don't have that education, even though the school system has failed.
Yeah.
I mean, just having access to things like Horrible Histories and Rap Battles of History.
I love that show.
Right? God, yeah, I mean, the stuff you guys watch on the internet is educational. Drunk Histories.
Oh, Drunk History, I love it.
Mm-hmm.
And it's surprising how much drunk people get even close to accurate.
Yeah.
Yeah, that would be so much fun to do.
But I mean, I guess even a drunk expert is still an expert. Do not quote me on that. Do not quote me on that.
Disclaimer. Yes.
Insert quotation marks here.
Yeah, I mean, all of the things, though, that we have gone through to actively feed our brain, because education will be found in a willing student. You just have to be willing to look and find it. It takes... Well, God, Ben Franklin even said something like this, that it takes a lot to remain ignorant.
Yeah.
You have to actively try, especially in this day and age, because the education is out there. All you have to do is, like, point and click. Come on, people.
Yeah, seriously. Like, when Ben Franklin said that,
oh my God,
the internet was... What is internet? Pray tell, good sir.
But he also did found the first library in the States.
True, but even with, like, comparing a single library to comparing it to the internet...
Yeah. I mean, now there's absolutely no excuse.
It's no contest. Like, now you can pick up your phone usually and take maybe 30 seconds to type out a question, and within a minute you will have detailed, verifiable information.
Yep.
And if you choose to not use that, that is officially on you. That is you preferring to remain ignorant. And I'm sorry to phrase it like that, but it is.
I mean, it's true.
It is. It is. And
I mean, it's one of those things where, like, you know, the advancement of technology nowadays is amazing, but at the same time, in a lot of ways, we take it for granted, you know.
Oh, yeah.
Couple things, really. First of all, back then, during the Apollo space launch, you know, the computers that were used to, you know, coordinate every single aspect of that launch, you know, we're talking massive terminals, massive...
entire rooms dedicated to just these computers.
You know, this, nowadays, something as simple as a handheld device you can use to coordinate stages of a simple launch.
Oh, yeah, like,
you know...
what was it? Someone said that, like, the computers used during the Apollo launches were about roughly the equivalent power of a modern calculator.
Right.
Pretty much, yeah.
Yeah, they were using slide rules the first time.
Not even a good calculator, like a regular Texas Instruments bullshit calculator.
Texas Instruments.
And I'm calling you out, Texas Instruments. Step up your game.
But that's just a prime example. I mean,
you see Musk in Texas
the point I'm trying to make is from, as a collective, as a species, from the stuff that everybody has learned, all put on this, massive digital canvas of knowledge.
Right.
We have that canvas at our fingertips, and yet we use it to play Flappy Bird.
And look at cat pictures and porno and argue with strangers.
And complain about the state of our government and generally not do anything about it except complain.
Complaining in and of itself can get a conversation started, but you were saying something, Ark.
The point I'm trying to make is we take for granted, the fact that we literally have unlimited access to whatever it is we want to learn.
Mm-hmm.
And that's very true. Like especially with how many tutorials are on YouTube these days.
Oh right, yeah, you can learn anything you want to.
I could honestly say I've learned so much more from YouTube than I have in school.
Yeah,
that is very true. Mm-hmm. I will second that.
Yeah.
Okay, so when I was in school, this is a true story. Any of my teachers, anyone who went to school with me can attest to this. I would get in trouble so that I would get kicked out of class. And my apologies to teachers. This was on purpose. I swear. I would get kicked out of class so that I would get sent to in-school suspension so that I could actually read books so that I could learn.
Uninterrupted.
Uninterrupted. Yeah, like Groucho Marx said that he found television very educational. Every time someone would turn on the set, he would go into the other room and read a book.
Yep.
My quote is, I found school very educational. Every time I would go to class, I would get kicked out so I could go read a good book.
And actually learn.
Yeah, and that is how I learned. It was not school. It was the fact that school sucked.
And I do feel like I need to make a point for the people watching that might be listening to this going, what are you talking about? How else are people going to learn other than school? Well, you have to realize that school doesn't test what you know. It tests your ability to regurgitate information that has been presented to you. That information is not always accurate, especially when it comes to history.
Well, yeah, they leave a lot out about the Founding Fathers, for example.
Well, that's for, very deliberate reasons. There's
Obviously.
Details of the Founding Father that the people running things do not want you to know.
Like that George Washington is a whiskey baron. Cheers.
All right, yeah.
Yeah, no, I remember sometimes purposely going to detention just to take advantage of the quiet and just educate myself.
Yeah.
And to a specific English teacher who may or may not be watching this, you know exactly what I'm talking about.
Well, I mean, I had a good English literature teacher. I had a good social studies teacher. I mean, what she did was pretty much just gave me, unlike the rest of the class, because she knew me, she just gave me, all right, here's your country. I need you to write up, a socioeconomic. I need you to write up a history. I need you to write up, these subjects. Have essays to me by the end of the semester on all of these subjects, and I did, and I aced it.
And see, that was kind of like the high school that I went to.
Mm-hmm.
Yeah.
Call out to Tagos. Love you guys, even though you've kind of lost your way with the restriction of codes, but that's no longer my business. Good luck.
Give it time.
Yeah, so, I mean, that's the thing that the people in the workforce, managers, Gen Zs, boomers need to realize is that millennials and Gen Zs in general, they are definitely more educated and very likely smarter than you, and I don't mean that at all in a bad way. It just means that a conversation needs to be had, and also we need to have a system in which you can be kept up to date in order to stay relevant in the workforce, because this is happening. This is happening whether you like it or not.
That's true.
Mm-hmm.
Yeah. And so what we need to do is all come together to make everybody relevant. And we're coming up against a wall. And that wall, if we hit it, is not going to be pretty, so we have to be preemptive. And acknowledge our younger siblings, our younger soulmates, our younger family, and recognize them for the brilliant and educated people that they are, and allow everyone to help everyone else to be and remain relevant in the workforce.
There also needs to be a lot more an effort toward understanding on both sides, admittedly, but well, let's admit it, the millennials are not the ones who need more understanding of the situation.
Yeah, there's that.
Yeah.
And it seemed like, I know you're bringing up the Tide Pods, you're bringing up all the stupid stuff.
Oh my god.
Let me ask you something. How many people that you knew growing up that spent money on pet rocks?
I don't even.
Can I be honest? I didn't spend money on a pet rock, but I'm not gonna lie. I was pretty close to.
Just for was it for the novelty of it?
Just for the novelty, like
Okay.
just to say I had it.
Why spend money on it? I picked up a pet rock and painted it.
Right, you can just go and
That's
find
what
a
stopped
river
me.
stone.
Yeah.
That's literally what stopped me at my bus stop when I was in middle school. I just okay, I was offered a pet rock.
Yeah.
But these same people going on
Adoption.
these same people who bought the pet rocks are also the same people looking at doing YouTube as a career and going, "Oh, that's not a real job."
That's and not in a bad way, but that is ignorance. Simply just not knowing. But there is a difference between ignorance and willful ignorance now. Once you become aware that it exists, I think you owe it to yourself to become educated. This YouTube and people like that in their own channels, that's television now.
Oh yeah, that has absolutely become the new television.
And yeah, so it deserves its own right to be acknowledged as television. However,
go ahead.
We need to get moving a little bit because we only have so much time.
I know. I did just want to bring up that yes, YouTube is the new television, but it's more YouTube itself is more akin to the new cable. Where basic cable, you pretty much just had to afford the TV set. The TV set these days is internet. YouTube, yes, there's a wide variety of content. Not all of it's good, but it's there and it's free as long as you have internet.
So, a lot of things that people don't know, if they're being introduced to me here for the first time, I was the very first internet model, that being creative modeling, dressing up in wigs and makeup and different styles of clothing, having pictures taken in different settings. I was the first. I did have a reason why. If anyone's curious what my purpose and stand was, I can let you know, etc. I owned one of the very first 5 internet radio stations on the planet. I hosted one of the first, what they would call podcasts these days, on games, gaming, RPG, etc. So I have owned the internet pretty much since '95. I was online when you still had to scan photos, upload them. I had designed my own website in HTML. When my photos went online from thumbnails, it was like watching it was going chunk, chunk, chunk.
Oh god,
chunk.
watching images chunk. Load in sections.
Yeah.
Yep.
So and the thing is, I did that in '95 when it became available because I knew the internet was going to be what it is. That's my foresight. I knew that this was going to be here now as it is. So I'm laying my pieces, knowing that this was it. And true story. The thing is, when people mistreat people in the workplace, they have no idea who they're mistreating.
Oh, yeah.
Right?
Well, you never know who you're walking past that could become, a star or...
The next president.
Next president.
I just had to throw that out there.
Be advised, all potential employers.
We're watching you.
We are. We observe everything.
Yeah.
You've been warned.
And the thing is, I'm seriously, I'm the kindest person you will ever meet. I lead with love. I really and honestly want to believe the best in a person. When when I walk up to you, I see the beauty in you. And that's the thing. Like, I search for the beauty in a person right off the bat. And I have no filter anymore. Like, I will tell you what I see in you that's beautiful.
Yeah.
And until you prove me otherwise. And once you do, there's no mercy.
Yeah.
I mean, I give you so many chances to rise up and be that beautiful person that I see in you. And it's really disappointing when you fail. And it's all on you.
Yeah.
And I see that beauty and possibility in everybody out there. And it's just, it's really disappointing. But I've experienced a lot of this in what I am calling the American work camps, and I know a lot of people are going to be offended by that, but I think you can only be offended by that term if you haven't lived it, and this has been my life for the past 2 months. I mean, I've what you endure in the modern American factory is unacceptable. It's unacceptable, and it's cruel, and it's evil, and it's demeaning.
And not just factories.
Well, I haven't been in an office. I mean, the last office I was in was an emergency phone service, and I did work most of it by myself.
Well, I get that, but that's not entirely what I'm saying. I'm saying entry-level jobs in general. Like, people act like because this is such a simple job that you don't deserve dignity or a fair shake for working it, and that's simply not true.
Well, yeah, I mean, it's just amazing to me that given my education, which again I don't have papers for because I didn't think I was going to be able to go to college, so I educated myself, and I do not mean this in any demeaning way, but for crying out loud, you have Sheldon Cooper doing Homer Simpson's job. And when you have that disparity, and to have a boss treating you like an idiot, it really is not conducive to a helpful work environment.
Yeah.
Nor is it conducive to progress.
Right.
Or productivity.
Yeah.
Yeah. And so, I mean, and I being in a really bad place with being in constant pain. I have a pain condition. I am in constant pain. I'd say like 95% of the time I'm in pain right now. It makes life very hard to work through. And just, again, golden rule stuff, might you just consider that maybe your employee might, be going through something and to constantly berate and belittle and try to sabotage them with something, and you are not acknowledging that they might be intelligent if they come in and are able to nail that position in one day with no training.
Mm-hmm.
Why come down on them and try to make them look like an idiot? And I know this happens to you guys because you are bright and you are young, and I have the misfortune, and I'm sorry, it is the misfortune of looking much younger than I am, because you are not taken seriously. And with, even when I was younger, I had that problem. I've had that problem my whole life. You're not taken seriously, even though you are intelligent, even though you are educated. And I think, again, if you lead with love and you lead with the idea that people are capable first, and then let them prove you wrong, then I think people will rise to that. And I know you guys could.
Yeah. Enduring what you just talked about, 7 years working at a very specific fast food joint, 7 years of enduring that.
Yeah.
Yeah.
Of being berated by drunken customers for, oh, you got my order wrong. Well, you actually didn't order 3 cheesesteaks.
On top of that, you're also operating a locomotive, object whilst under the influence of alcohol. So, yeah, we're going to make your food fresh while at the same time dialing 911 to make sure that you don't hurt anybody whilst you're driving.
Yeah, no, imagine if that person had a higher standard for their life. I mean, they would not, you know what I mean?
I mean,
it's just raise it up, people.
Yeah, to be fair, if that person had a higher standard for their life, they wouldn't be at a fast food joint in 3 a.m.
Well, I mean, if you notice the foodie culture, and I know I'm going a little off, but if you notice the foodie culture has actually raised fast food culture a little bit.
A little bit, yeah.
To a certain degree, yeah.
Fast food has started to step up their game because they're realizing that people aren't settling for aren't settling as much as if they can afford it for convenience or, just basic. They're not settling for good enough anymore.
Which is part of my point why I think what I'm doing can work, because if you stop settling for less for yourself, like people have done for food, for example, we can stop settling for less for ourselves as a nation, as less for us as a culture. If we say, I'm not going to settle for less for myself personally, then maybe we can say, I'm not going to settle for less for myself, as a member of a country.
I mean, heck, I'll even take it a step further, as a species.
Right? Make humanity great again. That's what Eddie Izzard's running for right now.
Exactly.
That's why he's running across so many different countries right now. Is just up for that hashtag, make humanity great again. Yeah. It is definitely about more than a nation, and I think you guys see things more globally because you've been online for so long.
Definitely, and in that vein, none of what we're talking about is excluding lower income people. I consider myself to be quite lower income, as I'm difficult to employ, what with my spine and disposition.
See, that's another thing. Trying to find jobs for handicapped people or mentally challenged people.
Especially if the disability isn't visible.
Yeah.
Yeah.
Like, if you're in a wheelchair, yeah, people get it. Oh, he's disabled. He's going to need a sit-down job. He's going to need accommodations. And I'm not saying he as in that's the default. That's just my vocal default because I am male. I have penor.
Well, you are male, yes, and I would say that I am female. Well, because I was born with baby producing and housing parts.
Right.
I may have defunct milk glands, but they've never been used, and nor shall they be. But yeah, but that's a whole nother conversation. So yeah, I mean, and then another big point is what they expect us to do, and how they degrade us. The last job that I walked away from, actually, they expected us to work in pig pants. Not kidding. It was one of those things where I did not have. I came back from a Thanksgiving break, and it was my first day back. I had a bad stomach, and I pooed myself. And this is how you know I'm an honest person, because I'm just admitting this online that I pooed myself.
Right.
Right?
I mean, a couple times too.
Why would you admit that unless it actually happened, especially in front of an audience of potentially limitless viewers?
Yeah, I'm saying this on the internet. I pooed myself at work. Okay, people? I did that.
Me too.
Fortunately, because of my history, I had at one point in my life my intestines pushed over into one half of my body, and that caused it to happen to me in the middle of a mall once. And in the middle of a nice big mall. And so since then I carried an extra pair of undies with me just in case, like to have redundancy in case. I always do that just to be safe. So this day at work, I had an extra pair of panties with me that I carried into the bathroom. I changed my underwear. I came back to my boss and told her privately in confidence that this happened. And I said, it's going to happen again. What can I do? I did not have any extra overtime to use. I did not have any extra, paid time where I could take off. But, I'm in 5 different departments right now, ensconced in these departments. It's important, that this is going to happen again. What can we do? She says, okay, well, you can go home and change and come back. And I'm like, well, that's not going to do any good. I already changed.
Right.
Right? I cleaned up as much as I could. What else am I supposed to do? Now, if I lose any more time unexcused, I'm going to get fired. I had no other choice. So I left. Now, I'm not proud of this. I am a responsible person. I do not just walk out on a job. I do not do that. And it was a very hard decision for me that I had to make. Now, for a month, they said I could come back if I declared that it was mental illness related, which I am not about to do, because that action that they took triggered my mental illness.
Yeah, that the mistake of defecating yourself wasn't part of a mental illness.
Mm-hmm.
The fact that they expected you to continue working anyways, regardless of the cleanliness or state of your clothes, or posterior.
That took me back to my childhood.
Yeah.
And I should not have to work like my childhood. I mean, you know, the squalor of that. And the thing is that I discovered later from someone else who will go unnamed, but thank you for sharing this with me, that other people at work are expected to do this and have done it and continue to do it because they expect it.
Just using that example,
Mm-hmm.
If a workplace's standards are, and let's call it what it is, that low,
Mm-hmm.
Yeah.
sack up.
This is the American workplace.
And I do wish to bring up a caveat here, because I can almost hear them now. There's people out there going, oh, well, you should have managed your off time better, or oh, you should have done this, or you should have done that. That's all irrelevant.
Yeah.
No workplace should expect you to work in feces.
Yeah.
Unless you are quite literally shoveling shit for a living, in which case it's part of the job description.
And then hopefully it belongs to an animal of some sort.
Right. I mean, even if you're shoveling, even if you're like a sewer diver going down there and breaking up fatbergs, like that's still in the job description. If you're working at a book warehouse, a book distribution center, and you mess yourself, you should not be expected to then continue to work under laborious conditions in those kind of circumstances. That is inhuman.
Yeah.
That is horrific.
Yeah.
And if you accept that and you continue to accept that, you are bringing that expectation back down on yourself. Mm-hmm. If you stand your ground and you say, no, that's the line.
Mm-hmm. And that was my line.
I'm sorry.
Yeah. that was definitely my line. I could not accept that.
Yeah.
No,
I thought you were saying I was supposed to say that.
Oh, no.
That was my line.
That was my line that I drew in the sand. Like that is where I started standing up for myself, and that's kind of what has led to this, really, because you know I drew my line, and my line got closer and closer and closer until my boundaries were drawn, and I couldn't put up with it anymore.
Yeah.
And you know my next job after that, my line got closer and closer and closer, until you know I'm not gonna put up with, say, a manager who doesn't care about his own company.
Right.
You know.
Oh, that story.
Story.
Oh, man.
Yeah, that's a whole nother story. But let's suffice to say, yeah, you know who you are.
All right, can I just quote
What?
that story a little bit?
Okay, fine.
If you're running a business and you tell one of your employees, stop noticing so many mistakes, you're talking to the wrong employee.
Yeah.
Like, don't tell them to stop noticing so many mistakes. How about you go where the mistakes are being made and go, hey, straighten the fuck up.
Right? You never know who the undercover boss may be, too.
Oh, yeah.
That's another thing.
If an employee comes in, masters their station immediately, and starts pointing out all of these issues that are going on at their station and in the company, you might want to listen, because you never know who the undercover boss is.
Yep.
Yeah.
Well, even if it's somebody acting simply as a sentinel for the boss, you know, the eyes and ears.
The office snitch.
You never know who that person is or who they might turn out to be.
Well, I mean, if the boss were to come up to somebody and go, hey, I need you to tell me what you see and I need you to tell me what you hear, take note of it. Like, if an employer, you know, requests something of that nature, obviously something's up.
Right.
I wanna make a bit of a ad lib sort of quote from Gordon Ramsay. He says, "Don't yell at the Yelpers, yell at the chef." The Yelpers are the
perfect.
ones that are going to point out the flaws in the chef. The chef is the one that needs to improve.
Mm-hmm.
That's the same with the government too. If you're criticizing the government, it's a sign that the government is doing something wrong, and that it needs to correct itself.
Mm-hmm.
You need to listen to the people And you know, Gordon Ramsay right there nailed it on the head. But it is also the idea, and this is the perspective of being someone who's seen time progress as I have. Back in the 90s, I was making the same amount that I have made for these companies that I have in the past year. These American work camps that I've been working for in the past couple months, I have made the same wage. I've made like, you know, $10-11 an hour. I was making the same amount in the 90s. Only then rent was $2.50 a month and gas was 99 cents a gallon.
Yep.
Today we are paying, well, I'm paying about $600 a month, and that is good.
Yeah, that's considered really cheap for this area.
And I'm roommating though.
Yeah.
I'm in one bedroom, roommating, paying $600 a month. And gas is what $2.75 something a gallon?
$2.75, $2.80 in this area, depending on which way you go.
Right. So I mean, look at that difference, and you wonder why we're in the state we're in. And also, one thing I was noting working at this one particular station I was working at is that the technology was more advanced in the 90s than it is in that place. I remember walking in and having this one gentleman at one of these presses explain to me all of the pieces that were missing and how we're working with all these missing pieces, and just remembering saying off the cuff of my head, because I'm an educated person who reads a lot, that we're living in a Russian dystopia. And I just said that without even thinking, you know, and without even thinking that I might be judged for saying that. But it is.
If you look at the comparisons, it's pretty damn fucking close.
Oh yeah,
Yeah.
no, this is
Pardon
it's
my
a
language,
step
but-
above that too. This is a straight up sci-fi dystopia.
Yeah.
I mean, you've got, you know, your Alexa has a secondary microphone that's not supposed to be knowledgeable to the public, that can practically extrapolate your voice across the house through several rooms.
Hey Alexa, are you connected to the CIA? Boop, boop.
I am now.
In fairness, my last day at that job, I did wear my Megadeth Dystopia shirt.
And that's cool.
Yeah.
But it's literally like... Fuck, I lost my entire train of thought.
Well, I mean...
Trust me, you'll find it.
No, I won't.
Yeah, you will.
And I don't know.
This is going to be hard to cut.
We need more education for everybody. I think, you know, more education on needed things like better parenting. I think that there would be generally less abuse, which I've had to overcome. I know you've had to overcome. I know, you know, most of us have had to overcome abuse. That's why I'm so far behind, honestly, is because I have spent so much time overcoming abuse. On the other hand, Nikola Tesla was very far behind. He spent a lot of time overcoming PTSD. This is true story.
History.
Yes. You're learning now. Yay. Because he spent so much time overcoming illness and PTSD that he excelled later in life, because he took all that time and opportunity to learn, which is what I've done. And which is why I am here now, because of all the time I've taken to study, to learn, to get to this point where I'm able to put all the pieces together to share all of this, and to be able to, I believe, bridge gaps between different types of people and different types of society and different walks of life, is because I've actually taken the time to study. I have the Library of Alexandria in my head, I think, and
Or something equivalent to that.
right.
At least the Dropbox of Alexandria.
There's a lot. There's a lot of knowledge in here. Yeah.
There's a lot going on up there.
Yeah.
Sometimes I feel like my brain's the Dropbox of Alexandria, because my breadth of knowledge is sporadically deep and varied, but not entirely useful.
Give it time. Give it time. It was like at one point it all just clicked and the world opened up for me.
Okay.
But it had to click, and it was really just pretty much in the beginnings of this year. And then once it clicked, though, the chessboard revealed itself.
Mm.
So you just gotta wait for that magic moment. But and the thing is I'm not calling myself in any way superior. Like, everybody's got their place and their talents and their muses, and everything is kind of backwards though. Like if every single person, like I said, has their own beauty and their own talents, and they should all be allowed to enact those talents. And if everybody were allowed to do that, oh my God, what a beautiful and wonderful and successful place this would be. If we were all just, oh my God, a renaissance, seriously.
I was actually about to bring that up. One thing that you mentioned a while ago that I completely agree with. A second renaissance would actually be very beneficial to society.
And I see, like, the first renaissance was primarily about science and
art
and stuff like that. I feel like this renaissance is going to be about sociology.
A social renaissance.
It's a social renaissance. It's coming to a realization as a species that, and as a country, that what we are doing is not sustainable.
Yeah.
In several fashions.
Yeah.
I think America as a whole, and I think we're getting really close to that, especially with your generation and past, is that we are a global society, and that America needs to at least humble itself enough to become one with the world. And the elder generations have to get that into their heads.
Oh yeah, there's a million families in the South watching this losing their fucking minds right now.
Of course. There's one in every crowd.
And I'm sorry to exclude you from the North. I know you're losing your mind too.
In humility, imitate Jesus and Socrates. That is what Benjamin Franklin said. And I'm sorry, but I am a literal descendant of Benjamin Franklin, so I feel that I can speak for him. I have studied him my entire life, and his blood is in my veins, so please understand when I say that. In humility, imitate Jesus and Socrates and Ben Franklin.
Ancestry confirms it.
Yeah. I studied him my whole life, and to find out that we were genetically related is been very huge to me. However, as for everyone wondering, okay, but what does this have to do with a presidential campaign? I see where you're going with this. You may even agree or even disagree, and that's great because I believe that as a culture and as a species and as intelligent beings, we can debate and disagree and be cool with each other and embrace each other for our disagreements. And I love people that make me think. Please disagree with me. Give me your well-reasoned opinions, and I might even change my mind. And that's a wonderful thing when we can change our minds. Again, in humility. Be open to that. And
be willing to accept that you may be wrong.
Right. Mm-hmm. I am entirely.
I know I am.
Right.
I've been wrong on a few things.
There is definitely power in that. That even suggestion that I might be wrong. But I don't want to make this about me, and I think that's a disconnect, and I am opening myself up to say, hey, I don't want this to be about me. This is not about personal gain. Yes, I am at the bottom, but that makes me what's the word? I have nothing to lose, and that makes me more open to saying what's on my mind, because I have nothing to lose from this venture. And so my tongue's a little loose right now. I don't, sink or swim at this point. I want everyone to know that this is not about me. I'm only the facilitator of knowledge, and I have the knowledge to share. I have very viable options that can help this country to repair itself, that can help even the world to prepare itself in the long run. I know what I can do to make that happen, and I can guarantee that. But if anyone says, yes, I want you to be the one to do it, you may not like all of my policies. And that's a conversation that we will have to have as adults, because adults are welcome to this forum, but you have to also be willing to join it in humility and actually have a conversation and decide whether or not you are willing to accept what I am offering. And that's a conversation for a whole other time.
And I do feel like I should add this caveat as well. Responding to this video with a troll response is not going to get you a conversation.
No.
It's also going to be it's also going to be plainly obvious
and completely ignored.
Yeah.
So if we see any comments that are just like, "Oh, well, I thought you were willing to have a conversation."
Swat like fly.
Yeah, no. You're not going to get a response. You are a buzz in the ear of a titan.
But any intellectual debate, any real well-reasoned thought, I am willing and able and hungry for.
Right. You said this, but what about this contingency? Like, did you think about this?
Oh my God, I would love that.
Right, that's constructive. That is appreciated.
Mm-hmm.
But going, oh, well, what about Obama?
No.
That's not an argument. That is a childish reprimand.
I will even go so far as to say Napoleon Bonaparte. He said, "A true man does not hate." And that was a warrior, a
Which
general.
is kind of ironic coming from him. But...
See, that's what I was just saying. No, I hate no one. I feel sorry for some people, but I hate no one. And so, for example, Donald Trump has done nothing to me personally. I've had a conversation with people about Trump and how, his policies and so on. I have not seen anything intelligent come out of his mouth.
God, I miss complete sentences.
Thank you. This is why I'm doing my campaign on Quora and not on Twitter.
Yeah.
This is true. Because Quora is where the PhDs are.
Truth.
Right, yeah. However, he has not done anything to me personally. Now, I know how people on the ground are living, though. So I know how people are struggling. I know how the real people, the real America lives, so I have not seen any changes on the ground. So I know the reality of the situation. How his policies are interacting with that, I don't know. And I won't know unless Trump and I actually sit down and have a real conversation.
Or until you wait 3 or 4 years before the actual details come out.
Even then. Again, when rumors happen and so on, I want to go to the source and find out from the source. That is how you fix things, too, is going to the source.
True, but retroactive information does tend to be more accurate and bipartisan than in-the-moment reactionary stuff.
On top of that, it also leads to the origin of the issue.
The truth of a story is usually somewhere in the middle.
Yeah.
A lot of people shouting at each other doesn't answer anything for me.
Right. A calm examination of facts and events does. Which is why, 3 or 4 years from now, we'll know at least 80% of what's going on.
There's one side of the story, there's another side, and then somewhere in the middle, there's the truth.
The kids are... I was going to say the kids. The younger...
The 26-year-old kids are smart.
I call everyone kids, just as, as my own personal caveat, my 90-some-year-old grandmother, I called her a kid till the day she died. So I call everyone kids.
I've got no issue being called a kid. I am still a kid at heart.
Right? Yeah, me too. So we'll go with that. Age is not a choice. Chronological age is not a choice. Growing old is, and I will stand by that till the day I die.
Truth.
So anyway, again... This is not about me. I want to make it about all of you working and struggling and fighting just to keep food on your table, food on your kids.
Just keep food on your kids.
See what I did?
Where are your lasagna?
Just to survive, to bite and scrap and scrape. I've lost phone service. I've lost my car insurance. I almost lost a home. Thank the gods for my wonderful landlord who worked with me, who I approved myself to by cooking and cleaning and making myself useful around the house. If not for him, I would not have had a place to live. At least for him, I have had a roof over my head. Or I would have been homeless just last month. And here I am now talking to you fine people. I know what it is like to be in your shoes. And I have only just, my God, been able to buy a tomato. So, honestly, people, I know where you're at on the ground. And I do not want to make this about me. Please, gods, do not believe this is about me. This is about you valuing yourself and making your own lives better, please believe that you are worth more than this. That you are worth more than what you have bought into, what everyone else, what the government, what your family, what your friends, that those toxic people have made you believe. You are one in the universe. There, in all of time and space, in history, there is only going to be and only ever will be one of you. That is precious. Please believe this. You undervalue yourself. Right? Rise up to a higher standard. Please believe that you deserve a higher standard. So in this idea, I want to make this more than about me. This is not about me. General M for Prez, I want to be for a charity. I want it to donate to a charity, but I'm not sure which yet. What I want is something all-inclusive, because I consider myself beyond gender, which really on my last application for my last job was really cool. They totally accepted. For gender, I put me, which suits me exactly fine. My gender is me. It is Emerson. It is who I am. And so as far as race and culture and belief and spirituality and everything a human being can possibly be, I want this charity to embrace that. I want this charity to embrace communication between cultures and nations and races and cultures and languages. I want this charity to reach out to people of all different societies and be one that will bring us together. And I want to have this presidential campaign to be one that does that. And I want it to be viable. I want it to be something that the Better Business Bureau is an A+ with. I want something that we can be sure that this money is going to go to do that. And so that's something that we are looking into, that we are going to ensure is viable, so that we can be assured that your money is going to go to that. So if you donate to General M for Prez, Gen Z for Prez. Not yet, kids. You're not old enough, but again, raise your standard. You will be Prez someday.
Yeah, check back in a couple decades.
Mm.
Get what we mean, not what we say.
It's the spirit. It's the spirit of what I'm saying. But you know what I mean.
Yeah.
I really hoped I would be eloquent for this.
I think the point was conveyed as cleanly as could be expected.
Yeah. And actually, if I might toss out an example, just, for lack of a better phrase, shits and giggles. Mm-hmm. St. Jude's Children's Hospital, as far as medical advances and just as far as progress in general, I think that would be a pretty valid, charity to establish.
St. Jude's is definitely one that is on the list, or I feel that at least should be. But no matter what the charity that is decided, we will be doing due diligence and research into where exactly the money's going, what foundations are in charge of the distribution, everything down to the last detail, because we don't want a single dime of this money squandered on greed.
And no discrimination between gender, races, cultures, religions, etc.
Whatsoever.
Yeah.
I don't care what language you speak. If you need help, I'm there.
Mm-hmm.
As long as I can actually help. If you call me about somebody got shot in the chest and they've got a sucking chest wound, I'm sorry, man, but I'm calling 911. I'm not qualified for that.
Yeah.
But it is really important that it's something that bridges communication gaps and it brings people together, because that is my main goal in life, is to bring people together and help to wound all heals. Heal all wounds. That was so Groucho right though. Life wounds all heals. That's Groucho.
Wound all heals. That's like an anti-cleric.
Freudian slippers. Yes. So that is actually, something that we three have been discussing is that, because I don't want this to be about me, and that's been a big deal. Something that's been wearing on me that didn't fit right. I want to do this campaign to get attention for the issues that matter, but I don't want it to be about me. And again, if this is something, I feel like Richard Pryor, when he ran for president in the movie, it was Brewster's Millions or something, where he ran for president under the term none of the above, and people wanted to vote for him. And if that is something that you people entertain, then that's an adult conversation that we're going to have for a different time, because I do have viable ideas that are actually viable ideas. But that is something else entirely, because I know that people are not going to agree with all of my policies, though I honestly believe it will be for the best. But that's me, and I know that other people believe in my policies and that they would be for the best. However, I personally, with my life, I want to be Elon Musk if Elon Musk fronted a heavy metal band and also started action movies. That's what I want to be with my life.
Yep, that hand. That's more visible.
Right?
Yeah.
So that's what I want to do. If someone were to say, "Hey, answer this call," then I would. But I mean, because I feel like the world is more important than I am, and the state of the world and raising people up to be something better than they are is more important than I am. Yeah. But this at least starting a conversation about the state that we're in, and about you wonderful people that are coming into the world. You guys are definitely the hope for humanity, but I find it very sad that the elder generations don't get what's coming. And like I said, the wall is coming up fast, and something needs to happen before we hit it. And what needs to happen is, again, to bridge a conversation between the generations, and I know what that is. And honestly, human beings, I know for now, I have found the linchpin. Human beings really need just one thing, and that's appreciation.
It's true.
Mm-hmm. If we would work for free for appreciation.
And actually, my first job, I did work for free. Mm. It was pretty much an internship for the first couple months, and it wasn't like I was working at an office. I was working at a bike shop, a bicycle shop. All I wanted when I asked if I could help out around the shop there was something to put on my resume, because nobody's going to hire somebody who's technically an adult but has no work history, neglecting the fact that, this person may not have had access to employment at all. I came from Janesville and I reached employment age shortly after the General Motors plant in the town shut down. That was half the town. That was half the reason the town was even there. Yeah. And so because of that, I grew up in a climate that was very hostile toward new workers. And that's, how can you move forward from that except for volunteering your time? And practically nobody these days has that time to volunteer. And I'm sorry to eat up so much of the time here, but I needed to get this out.
The last job I was at, and I just have to say that all of you who know me were exceptionally wonderful. Such brilliant people, the modern Mozarts and Teslas and Michelangelos, beautiful, intelligent, wonderful people, and I love all of you, except for that one boss who seemed unwilling to see, recognize, or embrace the potential of someone who was brilliant, and someone who said to him, literally, and I quote what I said to him, "How can I make your job easier?"
And then they shun the response.
And then they told me to stop noticing problems and were willing to send all of those bad parts to the customer. And I told him, quote, "I care more about this company than you do. I was an $11 an hour temp who was in constant pain, who was working for free that night because I hadn't gotten paid from my company." Now, that was an error with my bank, and I will admit that first off. it was not an error on the company's end. The company was totally straight with me, but I was working for free as far as I was concerned that night. And he was willing to send all of those bad parts to the end user. And oh my God, man. Like, all I wanted to do was make his job easier. All I did was care about his company and what it said on their wall, which was 100% satisfaction.
Mm-hmm.
That I took their company motto to heart, and that is 100% truth.
And that does bring up a point.
Mm-hmm.
Like, one of the main complaints that I've heard from older generations about millennials and Gen Zs is like, oh, well, they have no pride in their work. Number one, that's a fictitious thing. Pride in your work is a begrudging acceptance that you're being forced to do this task and being compensated for it. But we do have pride in our work. The problem is our pride doesn't have work in us. You know, we bring something forward that we believe will genuinely improve things, not only for the baseline workers, but for management and upper management even. And because we are who we are, and because we are how old we are, that it's laughed at. It's quite literally laughed at.
We're not taken seriously.
At all.
And again, the youth, for me, it helps me get blown off a lot. And it doesn't help looking female, appearing female. It's really hard to be taken seriously. And that is another issue, because women's rights are everyone's rights. Even though I don't identify as a woman, it does affect me, like it or not. You know, the last boss at the book job that we were talking about,
Mm-hmm.
I took an efficiency list to him. I still have it, by the way, on a disk drive. I wrote it out. It was a whole bunch of issues that the FDA or whatever government agencies would love to look at, of all of the things that would cause problems in the workplace, including injuries, including things they could be sued for. I took them to him, of all of the things that would help the company run better, more efficiently, make them more money, etc. He took it, put it on his desk face down, and completely ignored it. And it's not that we're not working hard. It's not that we're not trying to make things better. It's just that people are unwilling to innovate and unwilling to change and unwilling pretty much to do anything that involves any work. We are willing to work. Yeah. Anyway, I know we've gone kind of roundabout.
Yeah.
However, I've been here on the ground, guys. I know what it feels like. These guys know what it feels like. I hope this has helped to update you on what is going on the ground, especially with millennials and Gen Zs, because these guys are coming and they're brilliant and they can really help. I mean, as far as, innovation, as far as raising this country up out of the dirt, and it is in the dirt. I mean, we really have to open our eyes and see how we actually compete, and we can make things get better. Like I said, together we can be better. I said we need to set a higher standard, but not just for the country as a whole, but for ourselves. If we start with ourselves, everything will rise up with us. So, General M for Prez, everybody, stay tuned. We're going to bring up our charity that we have chosen. If you have any suggestions for a charity, please leave it down below. And, please interact with us. If you know of anyone that we can get in touch with, I am looking for pure spirits like Keanu Reeves, Jacksepticeye, Markiplier. Who's some more pure spirits that we could think of?
Danny and Aaron from Game Grumps.
Danny and Aaron from Game Grumps.
For sure. Some pure, true blue boys, if ever there were.
I am really reaching out to pure spirits of honest nature that can really help us to raise the world up. That's what I want. And by all means, compliment someone on the street today. If you see some beauty in someone, let them know. And raise the overall, happiness of the world. Okay?
Just don't be creepy about it.
Yeah.
Say, hey, I like that dress.
But yeah.
That's not the okay
Unless
thing.
you know them.
Oh yeah, unless you know them and then you know they're just gonna think, oh, he's messing with me.
that dress.
Well,
Yeah,
You're
I
like
like that dress arc.
So anyway,
take it off.
I really appreciate you taking your time to at least consider, because that is all I have asked of you. You know, go home, mull on it, talk to your friends and people, you know.
Even Bella says
even
so.
Bella agrees, yes.
Bella agrees. Thank you again for listening, and rest assured you are all beautiful people somewhere in here. I want to see it. Thank you.